Today, Watchgate Part 2. Now it's time to get involved. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to this post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. Today I'm joined by Robbie Barwick from the Citizens Party. Hi Robbie.
Hello Martin.
And we're going to pick up that conversation with regard to Australia Post and the shenanigans that's gone on.
We are, and this is just a very quick update today because we want to encourage people to get in. Now's the time to actually get involved. As long-term viewers of the show know, half the time I'm on here, it's to ask people to make phone calls or send emails. This is one of those times. So I encourage people, Martin, to, if you haven't already and you're watching this show for the first time, go look at Watchgate Part 1. But also, we'll provide a link. Yesterday we put up an interview on our channel with Mrs. Angela Cramp of the Licensed Post Officers Group. And I encourage everybody to take the time to watch this interview, because be prepared to be amazed at how your and my perception of the Australia Post issue and the Cartier Watches affair around Christine Holgate, the CEO, when it first erupted, is so different than what this key group of stakeholders in Australia Post had. Because they're insiders, they know what the institution was really like, and they are absolutely clear, and she's vivid in her description, Angela Cramp, on what a massive difference this person, Christine Holgate, made to this very important national service. Australia Post is a public asset of the Australian people. Now, is it perfect? No. But a lot of there's some backward opinions, I use that term only because they're sort of uninformed, I would say, of people that have heard about this and I'm saying, yeah, the post hasn't been delivered properly, I can't get mail properly, etc. Those are all problems with Australia Post. They do not relate to this issue or to the question of Angela Cramp. Christine Holgate. They were there pre-existing. There was, Angela describes how Australia Post was being run to the ground under the previous management. And Christine Holgate made a massive difference, and she was solving problems, right? And she was committed to solving problems. So look at it from that standpoint, because we have a real, as Australian citizens, we have a real problem here in the way our political system is running our national assets, right? This is one that has been used and abused by the two-party system, the two major parties. There's a huge amount of corruption in the way they handle these public assets. That is not an argument for privatising them, because they're the ones that want to privatise them. There's a deliberate sabotage that's going on with these things that sets them up to be privatised. I see they can't work properly in public hands. Garbage. It's not the case at all. Take the corruption out, and it's got to, because you could go and privatise it, and in 20 years' time, we'll be talking about the ridiculous privatisation of Australia Post, like we're talking about electricity and all these other things that have just been a failure, right? So don't fall for that sort of the argument. That's the Liberals' argument. They're the ones that are sabotaging this institution. Some of the people in the Labor Party are as well. So this is where we, the public, are responsible. This is our government, our institutions. We need to make sure they work. And when you know the truth about this story, it's so black and white, it's so crystal clear. We cannot let them get away with what they've done. So the reason I wanted to do this update this morning is because since we last spoke, the lawyer's report that was commissioned into this affair has been made public, and it has cleared her of any actual wrongdoing. They stuck in a token, as I said last time, a token finding against her based on totally spurious grounds, completely contrived, and said, oh, she failed the pub test. Well, but they're the ones that are telling the people in the pub the lies, right? That then she fails. So it was all rubbish. Since then, you've had people from like Janet Albrechtsen and Terry McCrann have come out forcefully Janet Elbrickson's article in The Australian a few weeks ago was devastating in exposing just how badly the government did here. Terry McCrann, the other day in The Australian, has demanded the board and the chairman resign, and he's right to demand that. This is unconscionable. There's a huge shift in public perception around this issue, which is great. But the politicians, knowing this, and the people involved with the Australia Post are starting to play dirty. And what they did on Saturday is they leaked to the Financial Review that they're very close to appointing a new CEO to replace Christine Holgate. Now, that is outrageous. Her legal status is not even settled yet, because she at no time did she actually resign from Australia Post. She was told to stand aside. She didn't stand aside. She offered to take leave. The chairman said she'd stood aside, even though she hadn't. She then made an offer of resignation on the condition that there would be no conditions, right? Let me go straight away. I won't take the $700,000 payout I'm entitled to. Just let me go. And on that condition, with no conditions, no strings attached, no non-compete clause, no non-disclosure agreement, this sort of thing, I agree to resign. Instead, they announced she had resigned without formalising the process by agreeing to her conditions of no conditions. They said to her, no, there are conditions, and we're announcing you've resigned. So that's all up in the air. You've got this entity, the licensed post officers. They are absolutely emphatic how determined they are to get her reinstated as CEO, because she's the only one in 40 years that made a difference to their business. She did, right? And there's another element, Martin, that Angela Cramp reveals in the interview. The timing of this attack on the 22nd of October, 2020, is more significant than we initially thought, because the attack was over 4 watches, valued collectively $20,000, that she had awarded to 4 executives for the deal that they had done with the banks in 2018. Now, let me just paint the picture. Her and 4 executives led a team that separately negotiated a deal with 70 financial institutions in Australia. 70. That deal, and that's complex enough already. They worked nights, weekends, and public holidays, and their own holidays to do the deal. It took them months. That deal netted Australia Post over 3 years, $220 million. And that revenue saved the organisation and saved these licensed post officers. That's why they'll reward the watchers. Now, that's a deal with 70 financial institutions. One of those is CBA. It's the only part of the deal that's different, because it agreed to a 5-year deal. The others agreed to a 3-year deal. That deal was due to be renegotiated just after Christine Holgate was attacked, right? Because that deal expires this September. So it's a major renegotiation that's required. It was supposed to start November last year. It's now February, mid-February. It still hasn't started. And in fact, the banks have taken advantage of the situation by they have jacked up the fee that people who use Bank at Post, it's called, if you do your banking through Australia Post, that they now charge the consumers who do that $3 a transaction. It's highly unlikely they would have done it if Christine Holgate was still at the helm of Australia Post, right? They are taking advantage of the weakness that's happened because of this sabotage. If that deal is sabotaged and it doesn't get renewed, the licensed post offices are back where they started, on the edge of bankruptcy. Australia Post is back to making losses, and the government has its argument back for privatising it. This is a dirty, dirty, dirty business. So what we're doing this week is calling on everybody who's followed along with this drama as we've reported all the different elements. Now's the time to get involved. And we need people to call 2 people in Canberra, the Communications Minister, Paul Fletcher, and the Finance Minister, Simon Birmingham. Those ministers are the 2 shareholder ministers of Australia Post, right? So we, the public, are the ultimate shareholders, the government, entity, but that shareholding is exercised through these 2 ministers. what the board does has to be approved by them, right? And they cannot be allowed to get away with just short-circuiting this whole process by rushing to appoint a new CEO and see, there's no point arguing anymore. It's all over. They can't get away with doing that. And the way to make sure they don't, or to do the best we can to make sure they don't, is to bombard them with calls. So this week, their phones have been ringing off the hook from the general public. And it's just a very simple, you can say what you like, but deliver one very simple message. Say, I'm Joe Bloggs from Whoop Whoop. I want to send a message. You must reinstate Christine Holgate. That's all you have to say. If you want to say more, go ahead. But please get on the phone, make that call and say to them, reinstate Christine Holgate. This process is unacceptable, right? They have no right to do what they're doing to our national asset. Our interest as stakeholders is we want the post office to function. She clearly made it function. What's the Angela Cramp interview for proof of that, right? But now we have to get behind this institution. We have to, it's politics, if I can editorialise, Martin, politics gets dirty and corrupt because it doesn't get held to account. In the public's defence, most of the time you don't have the clarity to see how you should be holding it to account. This is not one of those times. There is absolute clarity. There's an opportunity here. This is you as a citizen exercising your responsibilities as a citizen to say, I have a view on this. I've seen what you guys are doing. This is unacceptable, and deliver that message to these two shareholder ministers. I'll be in Canberra next week with Angela Cramp. We'll be meeting members of parliament to follow this up, right? I'm representing the Citizens Party. She's representing the LPO group. We're not united in any formal way at all. My interest in this is the fact that Australia Post has the potential to become a public postal bank, right? She wants her organisation to survive, but we both see that there's an injustice here that must be rectified if there's any hope of Australia Post fulfilling its potential. So please, that's today's message. Get on the phone and make calls to these two ministers to demand that they reinstate Christine Holgate.
Yep, it's a very important conversation, right? Because once again, the big banks and government is sort of colluding, right? As they did around the Royal Commission, as they've done post the Royal Commission, as they've done with responsible lending. We see it again and again and again. This is just another example. Again, the machinery of government being laid bare and being strings pulled by, large, financially positively powerful organisations who have a particular agenda. This is a classic example, and it's being laid bare, and we can see what's been going on, and we've got to stop it. It's really important.
Yeah, you don't get this kind of clarity too often, as I said, right? So when you do, you've got to let the political people know, look, we know what you're doing. Stop it, right? Because, so many of the bad things that happen in politics are because they take advantage of the demoralisation of the public. And in fact, the whole point of leaking this thing in the Fin Review last Saturday, to say, we're close to appointing a new CEO, was to demoralise the opposition. Since the report came out, Martin, that lawyer's report, public perception transformed. This blew up in the government's face. They tried to short circuit that by quick. Let's just run them over with the machinery of bureaucracy, right? No, no dice. You're not going to get away with that. Now, there's no guarantees as ever with these things, but I tell you what, when the public get involved, it changes the field of play in a way the politicians don't anticipate. And it's not personal to Christine. Now, Christine Holgate, the more, just listen to Angela Cramp. In life, there are people, some people are more extraordinary than others. Everyone's unique and valuable, etc. But some people stand out, right? She is definitely a standout. She is very, very good at her job. She has a very interesting track record in business. She's never gone to a business that competes with a previous business she's been involved in. She's very loyal that way. She's always gone to new areas. So she went from being paid $8 million as CEO of Blackmores, the vitamin company, right, to take this business job for less than $2 million, less than half of what her predecessor was earning, because when she was a young person in London, she worked as a postie for a while. She had a connection to the business. The licensed post office people appealed to her, but she also knew that she had an idea how she could solve the problem, and it went around this banking deal, right? And she's approaching it just as a problem-solving thing. There's the post offices that are not getting enough revenue. It's undermining their ability to deliver the post. But all around the world, I can see post offices are combined with financial services that are filling a gap that the private banks aren't filling anymore at the retail level. And it works. That will work here, right? And she just looked at it on its merits. What she didn't evaluate was the vested interest controlling politics that she would have to contend with. And that's what she's run into, right? And we were already suspicious, as you know, when it first happened, like the way Scott Morrison went off, and we know his track record in looking after the banks. We were suspicious then. Now that I know how the timing of this sabotaged the renewal of this deal, that suspicion is much, much deeper. And I'm calling on my fellow Australians. Don't look at this as just an internal issue to Australia Post and a personal issue with Christine Holgate. No, she's representative of the welfare of this national asset that serves us all. Right? She made it work. She did nothing wrong. That's why reinstating her is so crucial to Australia Post functioning and realising its potential.
Yeah. Well, Robbie, thanks for that. We'll put the appropriate links below, and as you say, now is the time to pick up that phone.
Occasionally, you really got to. I know how politicians think. They know an email's significant. They know a phone call's more significant. That's why I'm saying just keep it simple. Tell Mr. Fletcher, I'm Joe Bloggs from Whoop Whoop. I'm calling to say reinstate Christine Holgate. Or they're going to pass on the message, but when they get thousands of these calls, right, that's a hell of a message to pass on. That's what you're participating in by making a call. So we'll give you the numbers there, right? Both Canberra numbers, they're ministerial offices. Tell Mr. Fletcher, tell Mr. Birmingham, I said reinstate Christine Holgate. Or you can say you're Josephine Bloggs. I don't want to, I want everybody to be involved in this. Joe or Josephine, make a call very quickly. And if you want to elaborate, go your hardest. But you'll tell when you call and they answer the call, they've been getting calls. Now, also technically, there's 2 numbers in Canberra to call. We will provide 2 backup numbers, which are their electorate offices in Sydney and Adelaide. So if you can't get through to the Canberra one, call the other one, right? But call the Canberra one first. And it's just something that simple. We need lots and lots of calls on this. It's a massive shot across the bow so that this process can be dealt with properly. You don't have the CEO of an $8 billion enterprise crucified over $20,000 that you then spend over $100,000 on a lawyer's report that clears her of any wrongdoing, and then $350,000 on an executive headhunter to find a new CEO, only to say you're going to pick a guy from inside the organisation. You don't get to claim that you care about taxpayers' money when you do that, right? And you don't get away with it. We need to make sure these guys are held to account. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. Thanks, Martin.
No, that's good. Transparency is important and accountability is important, and both I think is in big deficit at the moment. But we have an opportunity to make a difference, so make those calls. Thanks, Rob. We'll talk to you again. Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. We'll see you next time.